Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. I am Dr. Rabia Yaqub, an assistant professor of zoology at University of Education. I am the course instructor of applied ecology. Today, I am going to discuss about the biogeochemical cycles and about the sulfur cycle specifically. In the term biogeochemical cycle, bio refers to the living organisms and geo is related to rocks, soil or air and water that is present on the surface of earth or that is entrapped in the soil particles. Dear students, if we try to compare the total biomass of all the organisms that have lived on the earth in past time to the mass of elements like carbon, nitrogen, hydrogen and other elements which are supposed to be the part of that biomass present at that time, we observe that the total biomass of organisms which were present in the previous time is much more than the actual biomass of elements which are currently present. According to the law of conservation of matter, matter is neither created nor it can be destroyed. Obviously, the carbon, nitrogen, hydrogen and other elements which are part of the biomass, they must have been used over and over again in the course of time. The earth neither receives any great amount of matter from other part of the universe, nor does it loses any significant amount of matter to the outer space. So, the atom of each element such as carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, calcium and other elements, they are taken from the environment, made a part of some cellular components or biomass of an organism and finally, perhaps by a quite circuitous route involving several other organisms, they are returned to the environment to be used over again. This cyclic movement of chemical elements of the biosphere between the organism and the environment are referred to the biogeochemical cycle. There are two prominent phases of biogeochemical cycle, organic phase and abiotic phase. Since an element is necessary for the maintenance of life, its movement through the biotic communities, like different organisms, can be viewed in the terms of food chain. The flow of a chemical element through the food chain can be considered as the organic phase, and the movement of elements external to the food chain into the non-living part of the environment, it is considered as the abiotic phase. Abiotic phases are of critical importance to the ecosystem as the major reservoir of all the nutrient elements are external to the food chain, and the flow in the abiotic phase tends to be much slower than the flow of elements into the organic phase. The rapidity and the direction of nutrient cycling through the abiotic phases determines not only the distribution of the element in the total environment but also its availability to the living system. There are two classes of abiotic phase in the biogeochemical cycle: a sedimentary phase, which is part of almost all the biogeochemical cycles, and other is atmospheric phase, which is possessed by some of the biogeochemical cycles. In some cycles, such as nitrogen cycle, the atmospheric phase is more important than the sedimentary, while in other, such as phosphorus, the atmospheric phase is almost non-existent. And in some other such as sulfur cycle, both phases are equally prominent and present, and their relative importance depends on other environmental factors. Biogeochemical cycles that have dominant atmospheric phases are often called as atmosphere reservoir cycle. Those whose sedimentary phase is dominant are termed as sediment reservoir cycles because their reservoirs are more concentrated into the sediments as compared to the atmosphere. Depending upon the type of reservoir of nutrients, there are two types of biogeochemical cycles. One is gaseous biogeochemical cycles and other is sedimentary biogeochemical cycle. In gaseous cycles, the main reservoir of nutrients is the atmosphere and the ocean, while in sedimentary cycles, the main reservoir is the soil, sediments, and other rocks of the Earth's crust. Both type of cycles they involve biotic and abiotic agents. Both are driven by the flow of energy and both are tied to the water cycles. Means the presence of water is crucial for the progress of these biogeochemical cycles. Sulfur is an essential part of proteins and amino acids, and it is also a characteristic element of various organic compounds. Naturally, sulfur exists in a number of states. It exists as elemental sulfur, sulfides, sulfur monoxides, sulfides, and sulfates. Out of these all forms, only three are more important in nature: elemental sulfur, sulfides, and sulfates. The sulfur cycle is both sedimentary and gaseous. It means that it includes gaseous phase and the sedimentary phase as well. The sedimentary phase of sulfur cycle is long lasting or long term, and in it sulfur is tied up to the inorganic and organic deposits. From these deposits, it is released by weathering and decomposition, and it is carried to the terrestrial and aquatic ecosystem in the form of solutions. On the other hand, atmospheric or gaseous phase of sulfur cycle is less pronounced and it permits circulation on a global scale. Sulfur enters the atmosphere from several sources, for example, by the combustion of fossil fuels, by the volcanic eruption, or the surface of oceans, and gases released by the decomposition also adds up the sulfur into the atmosphere. Initially, sulfur enters the atmosphere as hydrogen sulfide, which quickly oxidizes into another volatile form, that is sulfur dioxide. Atmospheric sulfur dioxide, it is soluble in water and it is carried back to the earth with the rainwater as weak sulfuric acid. The biotic phase of sulfur cycle starts with the uptake of sulfur by the plants or the producers. Regardless of the source of sulfur, sulfur in a soluble form, that is sulfate, it is absorbed by the plant roots. These producers or plants, they incorporate this sulfate into the certain organic molecules such as amino acids and proteins. And when consumers feed on these producers or the plants, the sulfur which is entrapped or incorporated into the amino acid, it is transferred to the consumer level, where the excess amount of sulfur is excreted out along with the feces of those animals. Sulfur that is released into the environment by excretion or by the process of death. It carries sulfur in living material back to the soil and to the bottoms of water bodies, where the organic material is acted upon by the bacteria of detritus food chain. The self-hydryl group of amino acids such as cysteine or other proteins is separated from rest of the molecule as hydrogen sulfide by most of the decomposing bacteria. In an anaerobic environment, the hydrogen sulfide is then oxidized to sulfate by bacteria specially adapted to perform this conversion. In the equation, you can see that hydrogen sulfide in the presence of oxygen due to the action of certain decomposing bacteria is converted into sulfate ion as well as hydrogen ion. The sulfate, which is produced by the action of decomposing bacteria in aerobic environment, that sulfate can be reused by the autotrophs. Conversely, in those environments which are depleted in oxygen or in anaerobic environment such as bottom of certain lakes, it is impossible to oxidize sulfide by this means because the process of oxidation requires sufficient amount of oxygen. But if infrared radiation is present in these environments, there are photosynthetic bacteria that can use it to manufacture carbohydrates and oxidize sulfide either to elemental sulfur or the sulfate. You can see in this equation that in the presence of carbon dioxide and infrared radiations, hydrogen sulfide is converted into carbohydrates, water, and elemental sulfur. In another equation, you can see that in the presence of carbon dioxide, water, and infrared radiations, hydrogen sulfide is converted to carbohydrate, water, sulfate, and the hydrogen ion. Elemental sulfur that is produced by this reaction, it can also be utilized by another type of bacteria to form sulfate. If oxygen is present, the reaction happens quite rapidly. You can see in this equation that the elemental sulfur in the presence of oxygen by the action of water is converted into sulfate and hydrogen ion. If the anaerobic conditions persist, the elemental sulfur can still be oxidized to sulfate by certain bacteria if the nitrate is present. You can see that in the presence of nitrate and calcium carbonate, elemental sulfur is converted into sulfate, calcium sulfate, carbon dioxide, and nitrogen. It is very interesting that none of these bacterial reactions are unidirectional. Under certain conditions, sulfate can also be reduced back either to sulfide or elemental sulfur by the action of some specific type of bacteria. As far as sulfur stays in organic phase, it circulates within the living organism in the form of sulfide. The series of reaction operating within the organic phase of the sulfur cycle, it provides a finely tuned mechanism for regulating the availability of sulfur to the autotrophs. The sulfur is removed from the organic phase in the form of elemental sulfur, which is insoluble and it accumulates in the sediments. If the iron is present in the sediments, it can combine with sulfide to form iron sulfide, and this iron sulfide is also highly insoluble. Ferrous sulfide or pyrite is highly insoluble under neutral and alkaline conditions, and it is firmly held in the mud and the wet soil. Some of the ferrous sulfide is contained in sedimentary rocks that overlie the coal deposits. When the ferrous sulfide is exposed to the air in the deep and surface mining, the ferrous sulfide oxidizes, and in the presence of water, it produces ferrous sulfate and sulfuric acid. In this reaction, you can say that pyrite or ferrous sulfide in the presence of oxygen and water is converted into ferrous sulfate and sulfuric acid. In the second equation, you can see that ferrous sulfate in the presence of oxygen and water, it is converted into ferric sulfate and the ferrous hydroxide. In this manner, the sulfur in pyrite rocks suddenly exposed to weathering by the activities of human, it discharges into in the form of heavy slugs of sulfur or sulfuric acid and ferrous sulfate and ferrous hydroxide into the aquatic ecosystems. These compounds destroys aquatic life and causes acidic water. This figure comprehensively shows the cycling of sulfur into the environment. Here the boxes which are grey in color, they shows the process by which sulfur is transferred from one form or one phase to another phase. The boxes yellow in color, they shows the major reservoir of sulfur. The arrows which are blue in colors, they shows the natural pathways through which sulfur moves into the ecosystem, and the red colored arrows shows the pathways which are severely affected by the human beings or which are created by the human beings. For example, the major reservoirs of sulfur are the sedimentary rocks in soil or the fossil fuels. These sulfur is transported in the dissolved form in the oceans or the oceanic sediments. From the sediments or dissolved form, it is converted into hydrogen sulfide or dimethyl sulfide by the action of bacteria, and it is transferred to the atmosphere and converted into the sulfur dioxide. This sulfur dioxide, along with the water vapor or rains, it comes on the surface of land in the form of sulfate. This sulfate is taken up by the plants and transported to the consumers, and by if in the case of death of plants or the consumer, by the process of decay, this sulfur is again transferred to the soil, and it is equally available for the deposition into the sediments, as well as it is also available to the for the uptake by the plants. Now have a look at those pathways which has caused excessive or abnormal transport of sulfur into the environment. For example, due to the mining and extraction of rocks, sulfur is abnormally added into the atmosphere, or by the process of smelting, burning of fossil fuel, or refining of fossil fuel, sulfur is also added into the atmosphere, and that sulfur is converted into the sulfur dioxide. That abnormal or increased amount of sulfur dioxide causes the abnormal acid rains, and these acid rains destroy the various ecosystems on the surface of Earth. Human activities have affected the sulfur cycle primarily by releasing large amount of sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere by many ways. The first one is burning sulfur containing coal and oil to produce electric power, refining sulfur containing petroleum to make gasoline, heating oil, and other useful products. Sulfur is also added into the atmosphere by conversion of sulfur-containing metallic mineral ores into free metals such as copper, lead, and zinc. Once in the atmosphere, sulfur dioxide is converted to the droplets of sulfuric acid and the particles of sulfate salt, which return to the earth as acid deposition. And acid deposition is very harmful for the living component of our environment. That's all about the cycling of sulfur or the biogeochemical cycling of sulfur. Thank you.